Hey all you cool rocks and crystals out there, I hope you're doing fancy. Happy Palm Sunday. This is going to be part 2 to my episode on the crystal systems. I got cut off while I was just starting the hexagonal crystal system with the emerald. So I want to recap before I continue. So the crystal systems are defined by their crystal lattice structure and also their axes, how many they have, and the relation of the angles between them. So as I started off with the trigonal system with our popular sapphires and rubies and quartz, of course, and tourmaline. So here again with the beryl, this light green beryl, I won't call emerald, but close to it. So again, it has the prism shape is going to be a hexagonal, 6-sided. It also can be a 12-sided prism. And then it also has flat prism faces, and they usually display vertical striations, the beryl family. So alongside of emerald and or light green beryl, we have a few other colors in this family. You'll have the ever popular aquamarine, and their crystals are kind of similar to this. You'll have the elongated columnar structure. Aquamarines are more columnar than emerald. They're also usually terminated by a pyramid shape, where emerald is normally terminated by a flat pinacoid shape. Pinacoid is just a name or a term for a flat face. So aquamarine also can occur. It can also be terminated by a flat face. This is a broken crystal, so it doesn't actually have a termination on it. But you can see it's flat faces in the columnar structure to it. We've also got another popular beryl is morganite. It is the pink version. The crystals in normally the habit kind of is flatter and shorter than emerald and aquamarine, but they're terminated by the pyramid shape as well, and also have vertical striations. Morganite is found a lot in California, and also in Brazil and Madagascar. Other less known beryl colors are yellow. It's called heliodor, as in the sun, and oftentimes, though they're very often columnar, but also sometimes they're rarely are they found without being etched. And when they're etched, they have really angular features. They were probably, they had grown and then the environment got really hot, molten even, so typically you'll find a lot of etched heliodor. So, and lastly, another color that emerald can occur in gem quality is going to be goshenite. Goshenite is a totally colorless version of beryl. And so that also, as I mentioned before, signifies that it is also a pure mineral crystal. So it lacks the trace elements that color it. Then also, there's a few other emerald colors. There's red. It is also prismatic. It's pretty rare. They do find some crystals in America. They're rarely completely transparent like the other crystals that I just mentioned. There's also a deeper, darker blue color to emerald, and that is called mashishi. It's a very interesting name, and spelled M-A-X-I-X-E, so mashishi. Unfortunately, the crystals are really collector's items because the color fades when it's exposed to heat and light. So it's pretty rare. You might not see that when you're digging. But this, like I said, I dug this up in in like a roadside dig when I was younger. So this is something you might find. So, moving on from emerald and to my next hexagonal crystal. These are probably the only these are like the only crystals that are well known in the hexagonal crystal system. So right here I have an apatite crystal. If you've followed my jewelry making, you'll probably recognize the name. I use neon blue apatite in my jewelry. I really like it, and then a lighter color blue. Apatite occurs in this green color and in yellow and also brown. It can also be colorless. And also pink. It can be pink too. So here, as you can see in the cross section, it is also hexagonal. It can also, it is terminated by pyramids, or it can be tabular, very small flattened crystals, terminated by flat pinacoids. This one is a broken crystal, so I don't have any terminations on it, but you can kind of see what gemologists would call a parting to the crystal, and that is one way to identify it. It's an irregular parting. So, it's just a break in the crystal that can help identify it. So, yeah, so actually I'm going to mention a little story on this piece. I acquired it. Someone who gave this to me. We thought it was peridot. Based on the color, it can be easily mistaken as peridot. But the main difference is that now that I have studied, like I got this a long time ago, so now that I've studied the crystals, I recognize that peridot doesn't occur as well-formed crystals, especially well-formed crystals like this. But it's also in a different crystal system. It's actually in the orthorhombic crystal system. I just had to think on that one really quick. So normally are short and compact crystals that have vertical striations. This, if you get in the light, doesn't really exhibit striations. It shows like some etching here, where it might have been exposed to some hot environment, but it does not have vertical striations. The crystals are also, when their prisms are terminated, they'll be terminated by irregular pyramids as well. But very commonly, they're not found as perfect crystals. Very often, peridot is found as irregular grains, broken crystal fragments, also in irregular masses, similar to how I mentioned rose quartz also. Massives are just crystals that don't exhibit any crystal characteristics. They don't have any crystal form. They are just huge. So that's what peridot normally occurs in. It wouldn't be a big crystal like this. So it was actually really fun to test this. It was a blind test, so on my own piece, and that was really fun. All right, so those are the crystals in the hexagonal crystal system. The last system of crystals I actually have in my possession are crystals from the cubic crystal system. And the cubic crystal system could be its own episode. It's my favorite crystal system. It is the most symmetrical, considered the most symmetrical, as it has only one axis, and it's the axis meets at 90-degree angles, where like the other ones have multiple axes, normally 2 or more, which were just 2 or 3, and they have multiple. They'll have multiple angles, a lot of difference in the relation, how the distance of their angles. So that will separate that also with some particular equipments that I have. So, when I posted about double refraction, the cubic crystals do not refract, so that is one way to separate them from the rest of all the colored stones, or even colorless colored stones, because a lot of colorless doubly refractive gems will imitate diamond, specifically zircon. As I guess I let it slip, diamond is in the cubic system. Zircon is double refractive. It belongs also in the orthorhombic, it's in the tetragonal crystal system. So it has, so it double refracts, and it's actually very, you can actually see it with your naked eye. So when it's colorless, that's just one way to separate them. So moving on, like I said, cubic's my favorite. There's a lot to do with crystal, like the energy, crystal healing and all that. All of this reflects with the crystal systems. So it's pretty deep if you ever want to get into metaphysical crystal healing. So moving on. I mentioned diamond is in the cubic crystal system. It can occur as an octahedron, a dodecahedron. They will have rounded, they'll be rounded though, so, and rarely it's ever in a cube, and oftentimes they're found, like irregular worn crystals like in Africa. Octahedrons are probably, I think they're finding those in Canada these days. So so I don't have a diamond crystal, obviously. I'll continue with ones that I don't have, but I want to touch on because they're popular and you probably will recognize them. Next is pyrite. Pyrite is also in the cubic system. If you've ever seen a pyrite crystal, you might recognize. They've come in cubes. I have a perfect cube back in Virginia, back home. Very regularly. It's pretty rare they come in cubes like that aren't interpenetrating twin cubes. What that means is they have, when a crystal is twinned, they have opposing crystal directions. So it's pretty much two crystals just intergrown. When the crystal started growing in a different direction than the rest of the crystal. So you'll see that in a lot of stones. I think I might have mentioned that with the rubies. Rubies and amethyst, diamonds, and one of the other stones I'm about to mention, they all can twin, and so they'll most of the time be flattened crystals. So also with the with pyrite. The pyrite cubes, they'll have parallel striations as well. They also form in dodecahedrons with 5-sided crystal faces. So it's a pretty interesting stone. It can also occur in combinations of those. So it's pretty fascinating when you see that. They can occur in clusters, so all intergrown crystals. It's that brassy, beautiful fool's gold. So, all right, well, so alongside of those, I have some crystals here. We've got a garnet. I've got a garnet, and garnets occur in dodecahedrons or trapezohedrons, which are 12-sided crystals, or it can be a combination of the two, and they can also be intergrown crystals as well. As you can see on this one, it has great diamond-shaped 4-sided crystal faces. It's a great example of a dodecahedron crystal. I absolutely love it, so thank you, Casey, for giving this to me. Most of my crystals are gifts. So there's a really interesting, I'll give you a little bit background on garnet. So very often American garnets are kind of not so perfect like this, but yes, opaque like this for sure. I've determined that this is an almandite garnet. There is also pyrope almandite, pyrope garnets, grossular garnets, spessartite garnets, and andradite garnets. And so to expand, the garnet family is actually a group, and all those that I mentioned are species in the group of garnet. And when you get down to it, you have rhodolite, tsavorite, demantoid. Those are all varieties in the different species of emerald garnet. So not to be complicated, but to make it easier to understand, the garnet group has the same, so the crystals will all look like this, but what makes them different is the trace elements that make up, or it's not even a trace element, it's the elements that make up the garnet. One element replaces another element, and that determines its species. So I'm just going to do an example. I don't have a note in front of me, but so say there's 3 chemicals that make up garnet, and one of them is iron. And iron can be replaced by another chemical in the structure of the crystal lattice, and it only replaces that. It makes it a different color, and so that kind of is based on where it grew, the environment it grew in, what elements were in that environment. So that kind of determines what species you get from the garnet. So they're all different colors. The pyrope almandites, they're like brownish, reddish, orange to purple, pinkish. The rhodolite is a variety of almandite. So if you ever see those nice like purplish red garnets, that is almandite. It's very popular. The deep reddish ones are pyrope. Those were historically as an August, garnet is January, as January babies might be familiar with more probably with the burgundy red, like a deep wine color. But just so that you January kids know, you have a beautiful group of garnets that can be your birthstone. From a beautiful orange, which is spessartite, to a vivid green, which is savarite in the grossular family. So very pretty stones, and I urge you to look into that if you are a January kid. Okay, so next I've got some spinel. The spinels very often occur in beautiful octahedral crystals. This one's a little bit better. That one was a little damaged. They, like I said, often occur in these great octahedral crystals. These are pretty small, but you can get the idea. You see the triangle faces. They also occur in different colors. They're orange, purple, red, pink, blue, and black. I like black spinel. I don't know, it's sparkly, even though you can't see through it. But I really like these crystals. I got these. I bought these, so can't really dig for these. And or in American roadside digs, at least, anyways. So. Not much on spinel. I mentioned that probably with my ruby, when I was talking about ruby, that spinel has been mistaken for ruby for centuries because of the environment they grow alongside of each other. They do fluoresce sometimes, like ruby does. So, but that's just one test to help you identify what it is. They fluoresce different colors. But yeah, so that's spinel. And next, one of my favorites is fluorite. Fluorite is a beautiful, beautiful gem, and very popular when it's finished into different kind of sculptures or like talismans. It's a very soft stone, so it's great to carve. So as you can see, I have an octahedral crystal here that's pretty colorless, so it's a more pure form of fluorite. It's actually pretty rare that it occurs in an octahedron shape, but I got this from a group of people that source from Brazil, and they work with local artisan miners, so that everybody gets a fair share. Brazil has this as a source, I know I've mentioned, of really high quality and rare stones. So I have a lot of love for Brazil and their crystals. I have a huge lot, and you've probably seen some of my jewelry. I love to spread that energy, so I've probably shared with a few of my friends. Look out for some if you're waiting for it. So here's another fluorite crystal. I picked this one because it's a pretty good representation of the caused confusion between it and quartz. Let me get it focused maybe. And as I kind of probably went on in my last video, that amethyst and appraisiolite do not grow at the same time. They're primary and secondary growths, and they've been exposed to heat that changes their color. What I didn't mention about quartz, I'll just go ahead and throw it in. Smoky quartz, I totally forgot about it. It is it's exposed to natural irradiation. So that's where if you get a smoky quartz or a smoky amethyst or a smoky citrine, that means alongside of heat, there is also some natural irradiation occurring around there. So pretty interesting little factoid I thought I'd have to share. So back to the fluorite crystal. Just like amethyst is influenced by iron in its crystal lattice, that will be a trace element and in its color center. So when you have amethysts that have alternating bands of colorless and purple, so when it was growing as a colorless crystal, there was more iron on some of those levels that changed color. That would be a color center. The same thing happens with other crystals, like that happens to corundum with ruby and sapphire as well. They'll show striations that you can see their crystal growth. It's very cool to see, and it's a perfect way to identify sapphire and ruby. So similarly with this though, you have different elements in this crystal lattice that when it was growing was introduced to. So that just is the main difference. If you had a finished piece of amethyst on prasiolite, or similarly like ametrine, it's been finished, so you can't see its separation, but as a natural crystal, you'll see its secondary growth. So back to fluorite again. On its crystal faces, it also parts, so it will easily just, like if it has a break in it, it can part. Its growth is reflected, oh, here's perfect right there. So this little chip right here, any kind of little pressure to that can break that off, and it will be a flat face underneath of it. That is a break. So more about fluorite. It really, it's very commonly, and a lot of people might recognize it if they collect. It occurs as cubes, like pyrite, but also in interpenetrating cubes, twin cubes, also like pyrite. So again, the crystal is growing in two different directions, and that's kind of the cluster effect to that. So that's all the crystals that I have here in front of me, and I thought that was a good one, so I'll probably keep it. I enjoyed it, and I look forward to doing more. I'm going to conclude, like I mentioned with a little bit earlier, the crystal systems, the families they belong to, their axes, all kind of, if you go a little further to the world of metaphysicality, they are, that's why some crystals are more important than others, and the purpose that they have. Really quickly, since I love diamonds, I'll tell you what one of the first things I learned about diamonds is back in ancient times, because diamond's the hardest thing on this earth. Very often it could not be fashioned. So it took actually a really long time to figure out that you can run a diamond against another diamond, and it would fasten it. That was only happened within the last 300 years of diamond's existence. Billions of years on this earth. It's one of the oldest crystals or minerals, and so when you have, so diamond was believed to, it has very amazing protective qualities if you have a rough diamond. So I'm very interested in acquiring a few rough diamonds for myself. That is one of my dreams, but very often that's pretty rare. So, but the cubic crystal system, as I mentioned, being considered one of the most symmetrical ones, it's also represented as a cube, which reflects the alchemical symbol for Earth is the cube. So that's one thing there. With quartz, it being in the trigonal system, it has two crystal axes. It has that special electric quality, the piezoelectricity, changing mechanical energy into electric energy. Pretty fascinating. You'll find them in orgonites. They do a lot of protective work. Tourmaline is protective, also pretty well known with the schorl. So all of these things have to do with its crystal lattice. I thought that would be a nice little touch to throw in there if you ever wanted to go further in there. That is why crystals are chosen for what they represent, is because of their crystal system. So if you ever wondered, that's one of the ways that they've been picked for what they do. So all right, well, I hope everybody has a great day. Today is Palm Sunday. God bless, and I hope that we all stay healthy, and that this is all over sooner than later.